My name's Tony Gaughan. I'm a retailer. I've got my own punk rock hub in Glasgow called Blitzkrieg Bop.
So I'm Jonzip McNeill. I'm the lead singer and rhythm guitarist with the Zips, who are a 70s original punk band from Glasgow. I played in bands from early 70s.
This whole place is a punk rock hub, that's what I call it. And the ethics of the whole original punk scene, the place is packed with memorabilia. It's packed with records and t-shirts and stuff from that era.
So before punk came along, I was already playing in local bands, pubs and clubs. The music was getting more and more progressive and not to my interest, not to my taste.
I remember one of my pals, who's a wee bit older than me, coming down the stairs and banging on my door and telling me to get the Top of the Pops on, get Top of the Pops on. And it was the Sex Pistols doing Pretty Vacant. And I was just kind of like, wow, what is this thing going on? You know, these guys are like spitting at the cameras and like, you know, that real attitude, you know, and just in your face, absolute chaos.
Punk was at its height in London. It was still quite new in Glasgow. There was a handful of bands in Glasgow playing punk. I was looking amongst people that I already knew that played music in bands, and they were too old. They just didn't get it.
I know I've seen The Clash 4 times, but the first band that I've got vivid memories of were The Damned, when The Damned played the Machine Gun Etiquette tour at the Apollo in '79.
But eventually I did get the band together in January '78. The whole thing is based on '77 punk. That's when the first singles and albums came out. And people say, '78, so you already missed it. Technically we had, because the Sex Pistols split up in January '78, so as they were splitting up, we were just getting together. The
bouncers in the Apollo were infamous for being, shall we say, not fans of the punk ideal, and the fact that kids didn't want to sit down, the fact that kids wanted to rush to the front.
The rule was, you sat in the seat, you couldn't even stand up. You know, if everybody stood up, they'd torch out and sit down and you get thrown out.
You know, they weren't going to sit down and do the old rock, heavy rock crowd. They didn't like that. So yeah, I mean, there was boots swinging, there was people getting dragged down staircases and thrown out. I was lucky enough not to have that happen to me, but quite often in the street you got people sneering at you and friends were beaten up.
It was a clash at, I think it's Green's Playhouse. The impact of being at that gig wouldn't have been the same for me as it was for the young kids that were getting in to see the band for the first time. I think there was excitement, there was a lot of anticipation because I'd been reading about punk, firstly from the start, because I used to buy the Melody Maker and the NME, and they were reviewing the early gigs by Sex Pistols and The Clash. And
the punk genre just came along at exactly the right time for me, and it was right up my street. I loved the music, I loved the bands, I loved the look. And at that point I decided that's what I wanted to do, and I don't want to be somebody that is playing by the book. I want to do my own thing.
It was still quite new in Glasgow, so there was enough people interested in it. The only other problem was that the punk had been banned in Glasgow, effectively banned by the council, because of a Stranglers gig in City Halls in June '77, I think it was. It was an unofficial ban. Basically they messed about, bands coming up to play, the licence would be revoked at the last minute, so gigs that were supposed to be at the Apollo would have to be cancelled or rescheduled through in Paisley.
People that are in, I guess, in their 50s like me, probably always wanted to follow the bands, you know, and felt part of a kind of gang or a club, and stuck with it. All the young bands that are on the scenes just now, like the Snuts and other guys, even although they're pop orientated or they're indie orientated, they are all kind of calling themselves punk, you know, which I think is quite good. It's good to have that attitude back.
There was a further Clash gig then where they rushed the stage and the bouncers were just ladling at the kids left, right and centre, and Joe Strummer stopped and started shouting at them and, you know, trying to get them to leave the kids alone. It totally changed my outlook in life, mainly because of the Clash and punk.
You don't have to dress like a punk, you don't have to act like a punk, you know, you can still be into punk music and you can do whatever you want, but the ethos of punk is initially it was that anybody could do it.
I still enjoy doing it, I don't want to stop doing it, but there should be a young band that there should be a new Clash comes out that just goes, fuck this, what's going on here? This got to stop. We're not having this. Sometimes you don't know actually what they're singing about. It almost goes back to the kind of hardcore punk stage in the 80s where the bands might have had their heart in the right place, but you couldn't make out what they were singing about, and that always bugged me, because if you go to the trouble of writing something that's relevant, you want people to hear it.
Might not be the big huge audience that you had, but there's still always going to be an audience for punk.